If you want to win as a business, you need to be an AI first business. One dilemma a lot of businesses have, is it worth me learning? Or should I pay somebody to do it? You should learn how to do the basics. As the leader, you should be the most AI savvy person in the organization. How do I do that? You can use AI infrastructure now to build systems. The craziest bit for me when I started using N10 was the AI agent side of things, being able to see what the agent was doing as it went along.
If you spend a bit of time just figuring out what N8N is doing, if you can understand how the data flows through this workflow, you kind of get a grasp of all these other systems working together in tandem. And I now know what the roadblocks are because there's going to be a little error out on a section in the node. I don't need to be a hyper technical person to actually solve these problems. Hey, Jack, welcome to the podcast, brother. So stoked to have you on the N8N podcast. I love your content on YouTube, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. I was, watch some of your videos. I love the content. You got this free flowing style, and I think you're really good at like taking these kind of like technical concepts and just bringing it down to like a human understanding level. I mean, is that something that you've curated over time, or is that just something that's just your personality?
Dude, that's a good question. I think I'm not a coder. I don't have a technical background. I actually had a startup before I started doing YouTube content. I had to hire a CTO on who managed the technical stuff. And the cool thing about like where we're at with N8N and no code today is that I wouldn't need to do that again if I started today. So when I learned this like no code stuff, and we did some of that in my last startup, is like I have to learn it from somebody who doesn't have a coding background. So I explain it as it kind of makes sense to me. So probably a lot of coders are like, Jack, what the hell is he talking about when I was getting started? But like, yeah, I think because I come from that background, for me, it's just a little bit easier to, I just explain it in a way that makes sense to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you're right. Like, there's kind of like a black belt trying to teach a white belt. They might be forgetting some things at that like high level, but like when you're looking at N8N, I think a lot of people feel like I need to be a master coder. I need to go through and I need to understand all forms of programming language to get started. Like, what are you seeing in people picking up and adopting N8N? Like, what do they really need to know to get started and actually start getting real value from the system?
Yeah, so the very first thing is starting with AI fundamentals. You kind of want to understand things like prompt engineering and like how does a large language model work, like next token predictions. Just get a little bit of knowledge on a lot of AI stuff. We call it like the T-shape, like some breadth, some depth. So kind of just potter around a little bit and get your basics. Then when it comes to N8N, I would say the most important thing is to keep it super simple to get started. Like just build an AI agent that does one really simple thing and just get it working. Because I think one of the coolest things with AI automation is that like magic moment you get when the very first scenario starts working. So if you're a complete beginner, focus on something really simple and just get it working. And then just slowly, bit by bit, make it more complicated over time.
Yeah, man. It almost feels like you like, I don't know, you're in some fantasy land and you discover some sort of magical power. And you,
Yes.
like, you open up this like N8N magical book and like, ooh, I can make a fireball or something like that. What was like your magic moment with N8N? Was there a moment that you're like, ooh, I can do this?
Dude, to be honest, the craziest bit for me when I started using N8N was the AI agent side of things. And honestly, it was just being able to see what the agent was doing as it went along. Like actually seeing the cogs turning, seeing it cool and reach over different tools and bring it back. I was like, that's really cool. Like it solves the visibility problem, just like Uber, right? Like the problem Uber really solved was the waiting anxiety of what's it kind of doing behind the scenes. Like, you know when they're coming, you know what it's doing. And then the fact you could go behind and see all the different like errors and stuff, or like if it did go wrong, what was actually going on. So for me, it's definitely the agent. Ironically, it's also the most visually, it's the visual peak of the platform too, right? Seeing all the kind of things it's doing as it's going. So yeah, for me, I think it was the agents when I got started, man.
That's cool, man. And yeah, I know we just created that new feature, that multi-agent swarm kind of thing. So you, instead of like hopping from like subnode to subnode to subnode, you can actually see this like giant map of everything moving around and all the things happening and it going back and forth. And it's almost like I kind of feel like you're almost like peeking in on a private conversation of a company, right? And you see everybody talking to each other. I'm just like sitting there eating vanilla cookies, just going, look at this. What's going on here? What do you got? Oh, what are you going to do?
What's that guy doing? Yeah. 100%.
Like, what about in terms of like the prompt engineering behind it? Like, do you have any like philosophies around like system prompts or like making prompts and like being able like to train up the AI on doing stuff and or things?
Oh, dude, that's a good question. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this as well. Prompt engineering is one of those things where like getting it to 80% is actually relatively easy. And then you'll always find when you deploy things, either you're selling it to clients or to businesses, is it's very easy to get your minimal viable product. But if you want to go from like 80 to 95 or 95 to 97, you're talking hours of iteration and testing, really to make sure you get the kind of like absolute prompt that you need to. So that should always be expected, that you're going to have to iterate. Key thing is like context, like what you want it to act as in your system message is really, really important. And the bit that most people forget, which would be good, like write it down or take away with people, is give it examples of what great looks like and give it examples of what not great looks like. So like, this is an example of the kind of thing you'd get. This is 3 examples of like what I kind of want. And actually, here's 3 examples of what I don't want. And like, that's a really easy thing you can just add in that will like drastically improve the quality of it.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with you. Like on the points of like giving it examples. And if you think about it, I always think of it as like if you're a boss that runs a company and you said, hey, go get me leads or whatever insert
Yeah.
thing, and then it doesn't do it. Like, why aren't you reading my mind? And I think that's that kind of like, okay, what's your overview? What's your SOPs? I like to feed it SOPs, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to be whatever, send a message to Betty, then you're going to want to like go to their website. You're going to want to pull the data. You're going to want to do and show like different patterns of behavior for different SOPs. I think is really important. And then not like trying not to get like one agent to do like 100,000 different things.
Oh, dude,
right?
yeah, 100%. It's like, dude, they're like 200 IQ interns. They're like really stupid, super intelligent agents, basically. Do you know what I mean? You have to be really specific. Yeah. But dude, that point you made about not having one agent to do it all. This isn't Lord of the Rings. It's not like one ring to rule them all. It's like as the complexity of your workflow scales, so should the agents doing it. Like the more granular you can make the task, the higher the performance is going to be. Because the classic example, isn't it? Like, even if you take like writing a blog, like if you had one, if you just take ChatGPT, for example, if you're talking to him, it's going to be really crap at writing your 2,000 word essay. But if one agent's job is to, hey, create the outline. Second one is write the intro, like the quality goes up significantly. So you're right. It's such a good hack, man.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's such a powerful tool. It's kind of like I heard someone say it's like a baby with a chainsaw, right? It's like you have all this power and you just don't know quite on how to control it. And what I've seen, and like I'd love to get your thoughts around this, is I think the people that have been like the most successful, they're really good to go like depth of thought, right? They can like break down, get really clear on exactly what they want to build before they just start hopping in and like just doing stuff and things inside the system, right? Instead of just building, they're like, okay, I'm going to go and like do a write-up or do a Miro board or something like that. Like, do you have like a process or like some sort of thing for like, if you're going to make something complex, how do you go from like big shiny idea that might be overwhelming to actually something that's producible and in?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I also want to talk about the question behind that as well, which is why build? Why should I be building this? Which is, I think the first question I would love people to ask is like, because if you're looking at it from like a personal productivity point of view, a business point of view, or you're selling it, it's kind of like, am I solving the right problem? Because the thing that can happen really easy with technical stuff, and this, right? You've seen all the guys, is you go down a rabbit hole that you don't need to. Like, are you solving the right problem? So assuming that you're building to solve the right problem, the first thing that I always look at is, what is the outcome I want? Ultimately, like, what is the thing I want to happen? Is it a spreadsheet with 10 things that give me X? Like, that is the very first thing that I start with. After I've looked at that, I think, cool. My next question is, well, what information does it need to give me that thing, right? So I've got the output I want, the info it needs. And then after that, you kind of get like a sense of like, what is the most complex part of this integration that's going to linchpin? I mean, some really complicated call or some real, multi-layered structure or something. And what I tend to do, I usually build it from left to right, but then I just focus in on and zoom in on what the most complicated thing is. And I tend to complete it on 2 phases. One is build it to get it working. So like I'm seeing water come out the pipes. I'm like, okay. And then phase 2 is how do I make the quality of that water as ace as possible? And I will optimize it to a point where I think it's reached the level I'm like, okay, this is giving me the quality I need. Usually that's around 85, 90% of performance output. Because to get that last 10%, I'd be chained to my desk for like 24 hours a day, like optimizing it.
Yeah, a little bit of expectation management with there, but I like it because you're talking about basically, if you want to get started, reverse engineer success, right? Figure out what do you want, then get the pipe flowing, then zoom in on like, what do I think is going to be the biggest roadblock to that success, and then start drilling in to try to solve that problem, right?
Absolutely, dude. Yeah.
That's really neat, and I like that. I like that process, and you think about it because then you can start to make each one of those steps. It feels like you're making progress versus you try to build a giant complicated system, nothing works, and you don't feel like you're going anywhere. But you're like, okay, I got step one, outcome. Step two, flow. Step three, initial issue. I really dig that. What have you seen as like people just getting in? Because I mean, you run a community. You have a lot of people coming in that like maybe have no technical competence, right? And I came from the background like I wasn't technical when I got started, and I slowly iterated through it. But what have you seen as like people that have that going from nothing to actually getting value with using it? Like, what have been like the common pathways or trip falls that they could come across when they're trying to get from just getting started to producing value with the system?
Yeah, it's the biggest pitfalls. I think that's good. I think the biggest pitfall, I think it's like if you had like a curve, right? Like a graph of like never used it to like power use it, it can kick ass and use it all the time. The first one is not getting started, like seeing these things, but never actually just like downloading it or self-hosting it, just like so. Number one is just get started. The first one is like failing at the first hurdle. And I think this is like a mindset thing where like something doesn't go wrong and you can't understand why. That's like you're never going to get rid of that like process. There's always going to be at some point something that tests the limits of your knowledge, and you should embrace that as what a cool learning opportunity this is. I'm going to figure it out because you're going to need that skill with anything you do of any value of significance. So I think the first mindset stuff is there is going to be stuff that you don't get, and that's completely cool. You'll figure it out. So I'd say like that mindset stuff is really important. And then there's loads of like mini little technical bits that they get stuck into. But generally speaking, I think if you kind of start with the simple stuff and actually, use tools to figure out what's going wrong, you can screenshot your workflow and chat with AI and say, hey, this is the desired outcome I want, and this is the error I'm getting. What am I missing? Or like speak to people that or in communities, and it'll help you get there. So I think if you follow those general principles, you'll generally do okay. But the main thing is people saying, I can't get it working, I give up. Like, just it's normal part of the process and completely standard.
Yeah, that's really true. It's a whole threshold guardian of like how much do you really want to make this thing work? And one of the things that you highlight on, which is really interesting, is the fact that okay, one, like how much time have you put in? You want to be a master guitar player? All right, how many hours?
Yeah.
How many hours you clocking in? Like okay, I download a template, I try to connect it, I put in 5 minutes, this thing doesn't work, right? It's like going to the gym one time, being like, gyms don't work.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, what I want to be really curious on this is you talked about this, like, when I hit this hurdle, you're talking about there's two things. There's mindset and there's tactics. So the
Yeah.
mindset is like, when I get said feeling of thing not working, what does this mean in terms of my story? So that thing is like, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm a failure, or this thing doesn't work, it's never going to work, or oh, this means I'm growing, and this is an evolution, right? So that's like one piece of the mindset. The other one I want to drill in a little bit is tactics. Like you talked about talking to ChatGPT or asking AI. When you hit those roadblocks, what are some like go-to successful patterns of overcoming those roadblocks when you do face them?
That is a really good question. Well, I think obviously I would say community, because that's like really good to have like thousands of other builders that you can be like, hey, I'm struggling with this. How do I figure it out? And get those answers. If you're self-serving it, the first thing I would always look at is the error message itself. Like, first of all, have I made am I even using the right thing? You can find yourself sometimes, I guess I'm speaking to someone who like struggles with some stuff technically here, going down a rabbit hole you don't actually need to go down. Like, there could just be a way simpler way of doing the thing that you want to do. But also, like, don't despise the rabbit hole, because it's in those rabbit holes that we learn how to do things. Like, I've learned some of the best features of NA10 actually going and exploring in the early days and kind of like having fun and figuring things out. And, that's really valuable in itself. In terms of your toolkit, it's basically, I wish it was more complicated than this, but like actually just screenshotting it and then talking to AI, or basically just look at the error message and read it. I find this quite a lot. People say, hey, this isn't working. And then the screenshot, I see on the error message, it says, hey, you didn't do this really simple thing we asked you to do. I'm like, oh, it says right there, just change this thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So like, reading, I wish it was more complicated, but like, yeah, reading what it says. And then you can talk to ChatGPT about
the secret, reading. I know. We live in a world that's like we're shifting a lot away from blogs and more to like YouTube content, because I'm like, hey, can you just show me what you're doing on that thing? So
yes.
but if you just take a pause and go, okay, all right, first of all, don't panic, just keep calm and look at the errors. Okay, what's the error? Can I solve this to AI? Is there another pattern I can use? Is there a buddy I can reach out to, a community I can go to? Is there some other thing that I can figure out? Has somebody else already solved this that I could learn from? Right. It sounds like these
Mm.
are a couple of the ones that were kind of like, choose your adventure on how you want to get past this obstacle.
Oh yeah, and there's also so many like YouTube tutorials on N8N or anything that you can go and Google. Typically, if you Google it, there's probably a video of some guy saying, "Hey, I freaking had the same issue and I just solved it. Watch this freaking video." And there should almost certainly be a video on it as well.
Yeah. In terms of like, I mean, because you have your finger on the pulse of a lot of this. You're constantly, looking at content, you're making content, you run a community, all that jazz. What have you
Mm.
seen out as like some like super, like either inspiring or common workflow processes that you see your community or other people making?
So when you say workflow processes, do you mean like how people are creating workflows?
No, that's a good question. That's not actually what I meant. I meant in terms of like what workflows, like a lead generation system or a data tracking invoice system.
Ah,
What
okay,
are
cool. The biggest problem sets that I see people using and for my world is, hey, how can I use this to kind of get more customers? Or what do I need to do in NA10 to sell to a business is generally the kind of things. Um, Almost all of them revolve around. So I call this like the AI sort of automation operating system, these four components. And if you imagine you have AI like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, you have no code, which is NA10, make Zapier. And then you have two at the bottom. One is databases. That's things like Airtable, could be Google Sheets, whatever you want to, Superbase. And then in the bottom right, we have front end, which is stuff like Bolt Lovable. So this idea that you can combine these four things together to make something really super magical. Most of what you see people using NA10, like in Mike, and what I'm saying is that it's generally some kind of scraper. So you're kind of taking and repurposing information to do one thing to give an output. You're scraping 1,000 Instagram profiles, or you're scraping a load of email addresses, and you're doing some kind of AI intelligence to it. You're kind of processing it somehow. You're enriching it. You're creating an asset. You're creating a piece of content, written media, or whatever it is, and then you're pushing it somewhere, either into a database or directly into social media. Some combination of that data in, process, product out, I'd say counts for most of the stuff, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense because I mean, right now, being able to hook up like Appify is an amazing technology to be able to like
Yeah.
scrape and gather data, and then you transform that data and you do whatever you want to do to it. Whether you're reaching out to people, or adding some things into a list, you're being able to then maybe getting some insights of like pulling content down, and so that makes a ton of sense because I mean, AI is really data driven. So like you need to feed AI something in order to give you something back, right? And so where do we get that something from? And scraping is usually the source of it. I totally get it from like the trying to get leads for my business or doing something like that. I'd be really curious on like the marketing front. I've seen a lot of people talk about using like N8N for like marketing, like making content or repurposing content, but I don't see
Hmm.
a lot of people actually, besides those crazy gorilla VO3 videos that are pretty funny. Have you ever seen anybody using like N8N workflows that actually apply it to like for actual marketing channels, like making like LinkedIn posts or any of the other things?
Yeah, definitely. It's used a lot for creating different content. I think so. If you think about AI automations, the biggest mistake an AI automator makes is to automate a process that shouldn't really exist. So, for example, I want to send out 1,000 emails to 1,000 people, but the thing you're sending isn't great. So you've just kind of amplified something that doesn't work. So realistically, it's about finding the winning formula that works, and what and AI allows you to do is scale what already works. So if you found that you can create resonant posts, awesome. Now let's find how we amplify that using this technology. But most people just amplify stuff that doesn't work, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where they fall down.
It's so funny. I just hosted a San Diego meetup yesterday, and a guy who's he does sales, right? He works as a sales director for a company, and and he's like, I want to get to use N8N. I'm like, well, what do you want to do it for? He's like, marketing and these other things, and I was like, what do you do? He said sales, and I was like, okay. I said, so it's going to be just a little bit of a struggle if you don't know N8N, you don't know marketing, and you're trying to figure out how to do N8N, you don't code. You're trying to figure out how to do marketing. I'm like, well, what's working? He's like, cold calls and conversations and these types of things. I was like, okay, so if that's the case, what if we use N8N to kind of analyze your conversations looked at like objections, what's, how people overcome those objections, and then pulling out the data of what's working, and then looked at the metrics of sales and going, hey, can we bump this like conversion rate of what you normally do to reach out to people up from say 5% to say 8% using this type of thing, versus trying to use a new technology with a new outreach method, and then you kind of get like stuck on things. Have you seen people like where you're trying to because you keep talking about, I've noticed a pattern of like, does this even need to be exist? Should we delete this thing, or should we just focus on what works? Like, do you have any stories or use cases of people like, hey man, you kind of like nudge them into the direction that you think would actually provide value?
Yeah, that was really beautifully said, Matt. So it's very easy to get to the point where the tail is wagging the dog, where it's let's use the technology. Like the thing is this, right? Like what you work on is really more important than how hard you work on something. Like if you had a task, and everyone watching this podcast right now has an outcome they want somewhere, right? They want to use N10 to grow their social media, they want to sell it, they want to grow their business. Whatever your thing is, there's an outcome that you want, right? The key point is that like actually, you'll have a series of things that you can do. Some of them will be like 10x leveraged. The things that you should be doing, right? You have proven that you can get customers, let's just say for argument's sake, via this like outbound campaign. Okay, cool. So if we could just do more of that, wouldn't we grow faster? Like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, then let's just do more of that thing. The mistake people make is they start dividing their attention on all of the art to the possibility. And actually, I think it's because people that use these platforms are entrepreneurial leaning. And the same thing that makes you an incredible entrepreneur can also be the same thing that holds you back sometimes. And that's the fact that all you can see is opportunity. And it means that you end up doing like 16, 17 different things at the same time. And one of the skills to learn, and from thousands of people that I've out with this, I've seen the ones that crush it, is the ability to focus down on the thing and just do the thing that needs to be done to get the outcome. And it's going to involve saying the word no quite a lot. You may need to add that into your vocab. But sometimes if you think about anything in AI, it's an incredible tool. We should apply to the thing that you need to do. And all that said, it's still good if you're learning to have fun. And I build loads of stuff just because it's fun. I enjoy it. And there's a rewarding intrinsic sense of doing that. When it comes to applying and growing, like focus is really the key, I think.
Yeah. And what I like with this, pulling this back, and anybody listening on this one is like, okay, so let's figure out one, what's the outcome that you want, or whatever that thing might be in the business. What results are you doing right now to get that outcome that you want? Okay, cool. Is there some sort of manual process or task that you need to do that is gobbling up all of your time that you can then automate to get from the outcome that you want, the process that you have, and then remove any of those barriers to be able to streamline that process? That seems like a good little formula to help people get to where they want to go.
100%. And so here's the thing as well, right? It's about the theory of constraints. And actually, if you ask most people, what is your constraining factor? They won't be able to tell you. And if I ask you right now watching this, what is your constraining factor? If you can't tell me straight away, it's really worth you getting thinking about, because it's like the classic example is a Lamborghini factor, right? So you and I earn one. We can get 50 roofs out. We can get 200 doors out. We can get 500 paint jobs. We can only get one engine out a day. It doesn't matter how efficient we are at making doors or tires. We're only ever going to do one a day because our constraining factor is the engine. So you have to identify what that is. And that's going to tell you what to work on. And when you know what you need to work on, that's the highest leverage thing. Then we start to look at, okay, great. What are the workflows and processes we should implement to kick ass with that? And I know that, and I'm taking it like meta, like kind of like the why and the how. But I think crushing that as your pyramid is just going to make you way more efficient. You're just going to be way more productive that way.
Yeah. And it comes down, like usually people say time is one of them. Knowledge, right? And they're like looking for ideas. They need inspiration. Then there's like the technical know-how, and then there's the bandwidth to execute, right? And so if you look at those kind of categories, and you go, okay, cool. Okay, if time's the issue, then it sounds like something's gobbling up your time. If technical know-how is the issue, then can you get around people or learn things to figure these things out? So it sounds like trying to identify those constraints to kind of level up the skill set is crucial.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. One dilemma a lot of businesses have or entrepreneurs is it worth me learning, or should I pay somebody to do it? And I think the answer to that question is you should learn how to do the basics at least. I think there's a foundational level of knowledge with any tool you're doing that you should apply. Like my last business, for example, I got our SEO to a certain level, 80%. We had like 50K visitors a month. I said, cool, I've taken it here. Now I want you to take it from 80 to 100 because there's no more ROI in me learning it, right? So you take it. And even if you have like a beautiful business, there's still value in you learning the technology to understand it. Because if you're going to employ people to do it for you or delegate that, you want some understanding, because let's be honest with you, right? Like, we can be transparent here, right? This stuff is only going to increase in prevalence and importance and criticality. So you want to be more aware of what the hell's happening than less aware. So even if you don't intend to be a full-time builder or automator, I think having get your 20 hours in at least, get your basics sorted out, and then you can delegate as you go forward. But I think that fundamental knowledge is really important.
Yeah, 100%. And I've noticed this. I mean, I know you work with a lot of like AI agencies, helping them get up and going. One of the things that I've noticed that what you can do if you're like if you run a business and you may be short on time is like
Yeah.
if you work with an AI agency and you're like, hey man, I may not do this, but can you explain to me what you're doing in the system in this process? And as I've seen, as I've ran AI agencies before, is like it's like half of it is building the thing, and the other half is like showing here's what's going on, here's why we did this, and here's some of these patterns that you could use to repurpose or reuse the system for other areas of the business.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, it's also like one of the questions when you're selling an A10 stuff, like, is it my workflow? Is it their workflow? So I think you can kind of get them to explain to you like what's going on, but it's also fun to learn. Like, I mean, like I'd say everyone should just go and freaking have a good time and learning with it, pull out, get started type of thing. So I'd always recommend everyone to check it out.
Yeah. I mean, there is the joy in solving, like, I mean, I think like originally, I think like the developers generally out the gate, they're like really, someone said this was like a really aggressive, lazy people. Like they're like,
Yeah.
I want to solve this problem. So I'm going to invest 10 hours to solve this consistent 5-minute problem because I want this thing to go away. So they'll write a bunch of code. And I think like with like N8N, what's really cool about this, like I had a buddy of mine who hit me up yesterday and he's like, man, I just like, I hate having to look at a computer screen to answer all my emails. Can I use N8N to be able to answer emails? And I can just talk to it with some like Cortana type of person, and I can just tell it what I want it to do because I don't want to sit on my computer. I want to go for a walk. I want to drive my car. I just want to do this type of thing. So like figuring out what are the areas that like you dislike that doesn't bring you joy in your life, and then how can you make it more joyful?
Dude, it's like N8N's like digital Lego. Like, you're not selling things, you're selling the ability to create things.
Yeah. I mean, and that's you're totally right. It is a digital Legos, and it's playful, and when you do a thing, it's almost, I think some of the joy is when that visual thing that you're talking about, when you see those circles go across and you see it happening, you have this like little in big out, right? You click a button and then it zooms all over the place and then creates an output, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. And then you want to, I go and show my wife, and she's, somewhat moderately entertained, but then like,
She's
I'm
not
like,
enthusiastic about it.
nah. She's like, I don't care. I'm like, this is so cool. You should. I was like, it's okay, but I think that magic moment of exploratoriness, and then just figuring out how do you either embrace the struggles of it, or how do you find a support network to keep you going? Like, I mean, what other things come up to you on advice when people are just kind of finding the joy of using this thing amongst the struggles?
Yeah, dude, it's cool. I think a lot of people, it's about control is a big thing. Like you say, like the drawback of an automate will spend 10 hours to solve a 5-minute problem is really true. And we chuckle at that, but I think a lot of it is agency and control. Like the fact that you can kind of fix anything you want to. That is a good feeling that we kind of like to have that. And from my own personal perspective, I've had a time in companies where, I don't know, quite frankly, what the hell's going on with the technology. It's like this black box, this mysterious, there's lots of things happening and no one can really touch it and access it. And oh my gosh, they're on holiday for a week, so it just is the way that it is. Sorry about that. And it's just not, it's really frustrating, to be honest with you. So having like awareness and the ability to like just say, well, I'll just fix it. Okay, I'll just do it myself. Like, is really freaking empowering. And like, you can stretch, like, generally speaking, fewer technologies stretch their maximum is way better than 1,000 technologies that you kind of use a little bit everywhere. Like, there's a benefit of focus, but you can go really far now with no code. Like, you really can, to the point where you kind of erode it. Like the key, I mean, developers are still important in the moment, but you kind of erode down a little bit of what you'd need to hire them for. Like, if you wanted to do this 5 years ago, get ready to pay whatever dollars an hour. A lot of the stuff now you can kind of do by yourself.
Yeah, man. And to your point, right? I think there's two things I think is really important is like learning how to cook in your own kitchen, right? Like if it's your business and it's your CRM and your databases and your everything, and you want to be able to get these things to happen, it's if you spend a bit of time just figuring out, okay, I'm gonna understand what N8N is doing. Maybe I don't need to master Google Sheets and Airtable or and any of these other systems that are lovable. But if you can understand how the data flows through this workflow, you kind of get a grasp of all these other systems working together in tandem, and then you don't have this thing of feeling like you're disempowered as a business owner. You're like, oh, I have the actual understanding of how data is moving through my business as an organism, and
Mhm.
I now know what the roadblocks are because there's going to be a little error out on a section in the node, and I can go look back at it and be like, ah, this is what's going on. And that does that sense of, you're talking about empowerment and control, creates that sense of comfort and certainty, and also confidence that you're like, hey man, if I can't, like, I can figure this out, right? There's a sense of like, it's not, I don't need to be a hyper technical person to actually solve these problems.
100%. And for most organizations, especially the big ones, IT is just two letters that just consumes more and more of the budget every year, and it just kind of swells and grows over time. And it's fundamentally disruptive technology, stuff that you need to it's just changing the way that businesses work. And actually, even if the CEO of the, say, 9-figure company, whatever, doesn't know how to do it, there will be teams of people that do get it, that they can actually step in and support. So your kind of like delivery mechanisms increase as well. So it's good. I mean, you always want some general awareness of it, but no code is it's just fundamentally making text the coding language, which basically means it's more accessible to build things that you want it to build. So we've allowed creatives to kind of just do the thing, and all we've really done is pull down the barriers of, you need to learn this additional skill to get started. Well, you don't anymore. Like, that's fundamentally what's happened there.
What advice would you give to, like, if you're a business owner, like an SMB or something, and like you want to bring something like this into your company? Like, how do they get started?
Okay, so first of all, if you want to win as a business going in for the next 5 years, you need to be an AI first business. Like, that's non-negotiable. Like, that is an absolute fact. The question is, well, how do I do that? There's two components. There is what I'd call your business-wide like AI intelligence. So everybody needs to be AI native. Everyone needs to be asking, what parts of my job could I realistically solve with AI? And if you don't know where to start, you should work either with a consultant or start educating yourself. As the owner, as the leader, you should be the most AI savvy person in the organization, because it is the most disruptive technology ever. So number one is upskill yourself on AI, like watch videos, just kind of understand the board and the chessboard. The second thing is, you're going to want some expertise. So the two choices you've got really is to build like an entrepreneur type of person. Either build the expertise within the business, your AI automation builders, okay, have like an internal AI automation team who offer a crack team can do it, and or get consultants to come in. I would say the direction of travel realistically is, you should probably pay more for consultants and build the automation experience internally. That's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. But fundamentally, it all starts with your awareness. And then actually, once you've got that, you need to get a chart. And that chart looks like this. On a scale of 0 to 10, what are all the things that we could solve across your business, okay? What are the biggest problems, the smallest problems? And you want to rank them out of 10 on impact. And then you want to rank them out of 10 on how difficult is the thing to implement. And then in the bottom right of this quadrant, if you can imagine, is the 10 out of 10, really freaking valuable and also really freaking easy to do. And we call that like the golden zone. And you just freaking focus one by one on that box and work backwards. And then you kind of do 80-20 with the others and go backwards like that. So there's a knowledge piece, there's an awareness piece, and then there's a roadmap side of things that I'd focus on.
I love that. I love that. That golden zone of creating a matrix, which you're saying, hey, 1 to 10 in value, 1 to 10 in difficulty. Look for the intersection that has the highest value with the lowest difficulty. Start there and then work backwards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know actually how much more time, because I know we went a little over before. If you got
Dude,
some more time.
I'm good to keep chatting, man. It's a good conversation.
Okay, cool, bro. I just want to be respectful of your time. So this golden zone, right? Going backwards from that, helping people get clarity, getting up and going, right? And then you're talking about hiring external consultants and then having an internal entrepreneur, some sort of internal young and hungry, savvy person that can do this, and also giving chops to the business owner to be able to develop this. Is there any other pieces in terms of the business that you've seen help them either get started or sustain to continue this integration moving forward?
Yeah. So everything comes down to incentives. Ultimately, it depends on the size of business we're talking about. Okay. So the bigger your organization is, the more politics will affect your business. Okay. And with that, this kind of guardianship of one's role, in the sense of, if I automate my job, I'm going to lose my job. So culturally, you've got some work to do. that basically says, hey guys, if you can automate your job, that is actually celebrated here. We reward that. That's a great thing. And we're going to elevate you and actually give you a pay rise. That's got to be number one. Once you reach probably past, I don't know, 20, 30 people where you start to not know who joins the team is kind of roughly when you need to think about the cultural piece. And from a small business, it's kind of about, again, the leader has to be in it and you need people championing it. And it has to be the first part of the process. We're like, okay, can AI make this easier, better, simpler somehow? And whenever someone, I even had a really interesting example. I forgot the name of the guy, but basically it was along the lines of, if you're going to hire somebody you have to first explain in detail why AI cannot do the thing. And only when you've done that and that's been written down and explained, can you go and do the thing. So it's actually about implementing processes in a business that force them to be, in a nice way, to be more AI centric and AI first and all the stuff that they do.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You're talking about not only it's like one, can you justify the role? Is it something that we can automate? Like exactly like you said before, should we even do this or should we delete this? More like should we do this or should we automate this? Right?
Yeah.
We're looking at that process, and then I think it's interesting because I know with like our company, one of the things what we try to do is track how many hours have been saved with automation. So we're very hyper focused on what are the things that we're saving, and I will tell you like a really fun like automation that I know that the owner of the company built for himself is because we're hiring so fast. He's got a thing that has all of the people that come into the companies, who they are, what they do, and some information. And every day he opens up and he goes through it just to stay fresh because so many people are coming in so quickly. He's able to stay connected with like, okay, cool. I'm understanding my people. I'm using this automation to create a deeper connection and understanding with the people that I'm working with. Have you seen anything about that? Like how to use automations to create a better human connection in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah,
Or
it's cool that your CEO does that. I think that's beautiful. It's like, yeah, it's cool because these automations just enable you to focus on the stuff that's high leverage or the stuff that really matters, right? We just take away all the boring, repetitive stuff and we just squash it down. So using that, I mean, like, what's a good example of that? I mean, like, somebody joins your community, you get a notification, you can read through and you can process that information and find all the stuff that they've said and like learn more about them. It kind of just enables you to learn more about the people, which is really cool. And there's like a billion different examples of that stuff, but it's like, this is the kind of real life benefit that and I think it compounds basically when you get that stuff automated, all these things start to compound over time. So it's a really beautiful thing, man.
that's really cool because like I think when they talk about these things, like in order to create a connection, it's really caring about the person. Part of the caring about the person is actually knowing things about them and then making some sort of assumptions like, hey man, how's your daughter doing? It's your wife's birthday, or I know you're afraid of elevators, but you want to take the stairs, like whatever that type of stuff is. So if you can use automation to gather the data on the people in your life, and then you take that and consume that inwards, and you're like, oh, I'm now deeply thinking about this person and what's going on in the world, and then ask thoughtful questions. I feel like that is kind of a way, like owner does it through this. It sounds like you kind of do that with your own community too.
Yeah, it's AI architecture, right? Because I mean, like a classic example is if someone, hey, what's 5 plus 5? It's 10, right? But if someone said, what's 692 times 1129? Like you may be a savant and know that, but that'd take you minutes to in your head, right? A period of time. So the point is like, you'd use for a very simple math question, you'd use a calculator, but you want to run your life in your head and remember and try and do everything. It's like, it's really silly. Some people, most life's important decisions, or even just like running their business or even their personal life, they just try to run their brain. So the point is like, you can use AI infrastructure now to build systems. It says, hey, and there's no shame in having your freaking family's number and birthday and say, hey, dude, let me know a day before or 5 days before the birthday. Send me a notification. Like, bam, you're never going to forget now. Because I don't go on Facebook. I don't know who uses Facebook right now. But the point is, like, you can build AI infrastructure to kind of account for things. It's not even business, right? Like personal stuff. Like, you build it once, and it's a cool thing. And it just, they're like, how the hell are you getting 10 times more stuff done? Why is it never forgetting? It's like, well, just solving it, bro. That's it.
Yeah. You want to scrape all of your Instagram posts from your wife and then come up with cool birthday ideas,
Exactly.
Yeah. What can I do to have this kind of stuff ready and available for me in a fast moving world? I love it. And one other thing I want to talk about is I know like when your recent videos, you're ranking all the different AI automations and platforms and things. You gave it an S tier rating. Yay!
Yeah,
I'm curious about like what. Can you talk to me just a little bit about the justification or why you gave it an S tier?
Yes. Okay. So that rating was based on a few things. The core thing is just value, how valuable it actually is, and what you can do with it. And no code in general is valuable, but NA10 really stood out to me for a couple of reasons. Number one is like, obviously the crown jewel of NA10, I think, is the agent functionality. It's freaking really awesome, really cool. The fact that you can have visibility of what the agent's doing, the interconnectivity, the fact that we can have multiple workflows in one Canva. There's a load of really big, beautiful things why NA10 is badass. And just if I had to, if it was like pound for pound impact and value you get from using a platform, I think is the highest of any software out there right now.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious about it. Yeah, and it does it the agents being able to visualize them and seeing everything is super useful. And then figuring out, what are the things that I can add value, whether in my business or my own personal life right now that would be super useful. I'm curious on the note of talking about pound for pound and having to be more useful and impactful. Are there any like automations in your life that you currently run that for yourself or for your like your company or your community that you find to be super useful? Are there anything that stand out to you like these are the ones that like if I took them away, in the background you hear me go, oh
yeah, absolutely. It's funny, the biggest ones that I use are typically around content creation because that's actually where I spend most of my time. So I've got like a lot of automations for a lot of different stuff. The ones that would really like, I'd be like, okay, that's really not very, a little bit annoying would be my content automations, like taking like inputs from people in my community and YouTube comment sections and ideas and using that to generate basically the stuff that we should be focused on, that we can talk about in meetings, that we can talk about in our content roadmap and stuff like that. Like that for me is one of the mechanisms that enables me to add more value. So I think if you were looking at it from like a pound for pound, if you took that away, I would be naturally less valuable as a result of it. And I'd need to create more time in a day to do the thing. So I think it's got to be that.
I like it. And I think one thing I'm noticing here is almost like this, because a lot of people, there's this kind of existential crisis of, is AI going to replace me? What's my purpose? What does this look like? And one of the things that I've seen just kind of as like a little bit of a recurring theme here is kind of like this 90-10, right? 90% automation, 10% human ingeniousness, human connection, human whatever. So like 90% ideation from the community, 10% of throwing your own personality, authenticity of making a video, or 90% of gathering data about people you like, and you care about, and then the 10% of actually reaching out and creating that deep connection. And so I'm looking at this 90-10 patterns. Are you seeing that too? Or do you feel like there's like this whole like we're going to be replaced and that now we go retire on the beach or what Netflix all day long?
Yeah, it is, dude. It's like there will be a small handful of the things you do give you most of your returns, like generally speaking. The question is, what are the things? Like one of the most ridiculously simple automations I use that gives like, which for its freaking simplicity is insane, is just like an email segmentation agent that basically just says, hey, this is a sponsorship, this is a customer. Like that works all day, every day. Like if I didn't have that, I'd be really freaking like, this is really annoying. I don't like the way my inbox looks anymore. So it is about the small things that give you the big returns. But again, it's the question of like, what is the real problem? Like, what's the robot in the red dress? And what's the stuff we should be focusing on?
The robot in the red dress. I love it. That's great. And I think like what you're talking about too with is I feel like there's like if you're looking at like, okay, if I want to level up in life, if I want to level up in my business, if I want to level up like who I am and my connections and all this stuff, I need to spend a little bit of time like just like understanding what the current technologies are available I can use, right? You want to spend a little bit of time getting clear on what are the outcomes that I want, what are the problems, the barriers that I have that are sinking up all my times, and then spending time automating those types of things in your life. So you kind of have this looping pattern of staying fresh, clarity on your goals, identifying your constraints, and then removing those constraints with high leverage activities, whether it's making more YouTube videos or automating the ways of like simplifying your life in a way so that you can free up on activities. Are those kind of the cornerstone pieces?
Dude, 100%. I mean, like one of the things I added into my schedule recently, it was Sunday morning. So I'm in France right now, and honestly, it's a beautiful place. One of the features of the culture is they don't like you working on laptops in some coffee shops. And one of them says, hey, we're a no laptop zone. But they also do the best food. So there's this kind of quandary. Anyway, I go there Sunday morning for brunch with my dog, Dexter. And I said, you know what, dude? I've got this big, I haven't got it here right now, A3 sheet of paper. And I'm just going to think and write what I believe to be the key 10X factors. It ended up being like one of the most productive things ever. And it's become like a staple of my routine now about the sharpening the axe thing of like get 2 woodcutters in a forest, like one stops on Friday, goes home for a day, comes back. It's like, this guy's a loser, but he ends up cutting down 3 times more wood because he's kind of using the thing between his ears, his brain, and thinking about it. And treating that like the highest leverage task that it is really important, because you set what needs to happen and then you go and build it. Because it's so easy just to start building stuff that it's cool, but it's not solving the core problem. So I really genuinely believe that what you work on is more important than how hard you work. One like small little data point on that is that I remember at university, and the more I think about this truth, the more I see it everywhere. And in the UK, we have first class is the best, then you have 2-1, a 2-2. 97% of people get a 2-2 or higher. And I always remember my professor told me, he said, actually, weirdly enough, the guys that get 2-2s, which is like one of the worst grades, some of them, like actually a fair amount of them, work just as hard as the guys that get the best grades. The difference is what they're actually working on. They're just not working on the right stuff. The input's exactly the same. It's just on the wrong stuff. So I think given the fact that's like a fundamental law, and we want to use this technology, the question is like what and in which order, right? So I just think it's such an important point. Like I think it's so worth stressing.
I love that. And no coffee shops or laptops in coffee shops, man.
It's terrible, dude. I'm barely hanging on, dude. Yeah.
That's brutal, man. I don't know how to handle that. Maybe bring your own table and chair to bring it outside or something.
100%, yeah.
But the concept, though, that it forced you down a path of like deep thinking, right? And clarity on, and sometimes there is a kind of a connection between your hand and pen to paper, that you drawing things out and seeing what's going on and then transcribing that into some sort of like high leverage activities to get you actions. And I think that's one of the values of the innate not the deep thinking part. I mean, you could do deep thinking, but the process of high leverage activities and going, these things are leverageable because they're, ins and outs. But the question is, this might be a high leverage automation on a low leverage activity. And now we're just trying to figure out what are those things. And that is something that, AI can't tell you, ChatGPT can't tell you. What are the things in your life that are eating up all your time? Maybe it can, but
it's good. And it's like, it's not what's the answer, it's what's the right question to ask.
Yes. And that comes to, I think every quest starts with a question. And if you get clear on the question, you know what your quest is, and then you move on the right path to where you want to get to. And so I guess, my question for you in terms of wrapping up this podcast is, what is your message to people out there who see this fast moving times? They don't want to miss out. They want to get started. What's the first step on this grand adventure?
The first step on the grand adventure is just get started and win the day. Win the day. All you have to do is win the day. And then tomorrow, win that day. You cannot influence or control the future. All you can do is influence today. And the thing you can do right now is get started and learn one thing about it. Every breakthrough I've ever had in any business I've done, I can link directly back to a mindset that said, I'm going to get a little bit better every single day at this thing. And eventually you kind of run out of things to get better at, or you just get to the point where you overcome the threshold in time, because your experience and knowledge will exceed your results for a long period of time. This is why, by the way, not everybody has like achieved the level of success they want to. And everyone's like a super duper millionaire. It's because there's lots of opportunities to give up. You just have to be consistent and keep on improving consistently. But the key starts with, it's how you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time. Just win the day, and you stack enough of those days where you win. Eventually you'll get it and you'll arrive.
I love that. And 100%. It's like, instead of trying to boil the ocean, right? You take one scoop out and then you boil that up. You're like, I get that, throw that into the pot, keep moving. I think it's fantastic. Mr. Jack Roberts, it's been an honor and pleasure. Could you please let people know how to find you, your channel, and anything else related?
Yeah, you can, if you'd love to hang out and learn some stuff, just type in Jack Roberts into YouTube. I'd be good to catch up, hang out there. I know we've got a community of people that love this sort of stuff, so you're very welcome and blessed to join us on that journey too.
Awesome. Jack, it's been an honor and pleasure, my friend. Much love, and I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Chief. My pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Later, bro. Peace.